"This one's fresh," a voice said above her, cold and transactional. 23, clean. She'll work off her brother's debt in the usual way. Emma's stomach lurched. The usual way. She knew what that meant. Everyone in this godforsaken warehouse district knew what happened to women who ended up here, in the basement clubs owned by the Constantine family's rivals. Her brother Tyler had sworn he'd only borrowed money for his medical bills. He'd sworn he could pay it back. He'd lied about both. "Please." The word escaped her throat raw and desperate. "Please, there's been a mistake. My brother didn't understand the terms. Give us more time. I can work. I have a job at the—" A hand fisted in her hair, yanking her head back. The man holding her reeked of cigarettes and cheap cologne. "You don't talk unless you're spoken to. You're property now, sweetheart. The sooner you accept that, the easier this gets." Tears burned Emma's eyes, but she blinked them back furiously. She wouldn't cry. Not yet. Not in front of these animals. Her mind raced through impossible scenarios. The door was 15 feet away, her hands were bound. There were at least 6 men in the room. Even if she could run, where would she go? Tyler was probably already dead, and their mother, sick in that nursing home across town, would never know what happened to her daughter. "Strip her down," another voice commanded. "Let's see what we're working with before we put her in rotation." Emma's breath came in short, panicked gasps as hands reached for her. This was it. This was really happening. Her fingers clenched uselessly behind her back, nails digging into her palms hard enough to draw blood. She thought of her mother's face, of Sunday dinners that felt like a lifetime ago, of the teaching degree she'd been 3 credits away from finishing before Tyler's cancer diagnosis had derailed everything. The hands grabbed the collar of her shirt. Then the door exploded, inward. Not opened. Exploded. The heavy metal security door flew off its hinges with a sound like thunder, slamming into the opposite wall. Smoke rolled into the room, and through it strode a figure that made every man in the basement freeze. Dante Constantine was not a man you forgot seeing. Even once. 6'4" with shoulders that filled his custom black suit like he'd been poured into it. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on Roman coins. Cruel, beautiful, and absolutely merciless. His pale gray eyes scanned the room with the casual interest of a shark circling prey. Behind him, shadows moved. More men, armed and silent as death. "Gentlemen." Dante's voice was smooth as expensive whiskey and just as likely to burn. "I seem to have arrived at a private party uninvited. How terribly rude of me." The man holding Emma's hair released her so fast she nearly fell forward. "Constantine, this isn't your territory. We have an arrangement with my cousin Victor, yes." Dante took 3 measured steps into the room, his polished shoes clicking against the concrete. Victor, who, I discovered this morning, has been operating several unapproved ventures. Victor, who is currently having a very unpleasant conversation with my father about the meaning of family loyalty. His gaze swept over Emma, still on her knees, shirt torn at the collar. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Something that made the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. Victor, who, it seems, forgot the most important rule of our business. What rule? The question came out strangled. Dante smiled, but it held no warmth whatsoever. "You don't touch innocents. You don't traffic women. And you certainly don't—" He took another step forward, and Emma could have sworn she felt the air pressure change. "Operate a comfort house in my city without clearing it through proper channels." "She's not innocent," the man protested, desperation creeping into his voice. "Her brother owes—" "Her brother!" Dante cut him off. "Owes money to a loan operation that Victor set up without family authorization. Which means the debt is void. Which means this young woman," his eyes found Emma again, held her gaze, "has been brought here under false pretenses." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She didn't understand what was happening, but she understood power when she saw it. and Dante Constantine radiated power like the sun radiated heat. Dangerous, overwhelming, impossible to look away from. "We didn't know," another man stammered. "We were just following Victor's orders. We can let her go. No harm done." "No harm done?" Dante's voice dropped to a whisper that was somehow more terrifying than a shout. "You bound her, dragged her here, intended to." He stopped, jaw clenching. When he spoke again, his tone could have frozen fire. "Who touched her?" Silence. "I asked." Dante pulled a gun from inside his jacket with casual grace. "A question." "Markov," someone blurted. "Markov brought her in." The man who'd held Emma's hair took a stumbling step backward. "Boss, I was just—" The gunshot was so loud in the enclosed space that Emma's ears rang. She squeezed her eyes shut, unable to stop the small cry that escaped her lips. When she opened them again, Markov was on the ground, clutching his leg, blood pooling beneath him. "That was a warning," Dante said conversationally. "The next person who gives me excuses instead of obedience will not be so fortunate." He gestured with the gun. "Everyone out. You have 30 seconds before I decide that witnesses are more trouble than they're worth." The exodus was immediate and chaotic. Men trampled each other racing for the door, dragging the wounded Markov with them. Within moments the room was empty, except for Emma, Dante, and the silent guards at his back. Emma's breath came in ragged gasps. Shock was setting in now, making her limbs feel numb and distant. She was still on her knees, hands still bound, staring up at this stranger who'd just killed for her. No, not killed. Maimed. She didn't know if that was better or worse. Dante holstered his weapon and moved toward her. Emma flinched instinctively. He stopped mid-stride, something flashing across his features. "I'm not going to hurt you." "Said every man right before he—" Emma's voice broke. "Fair point." Dante slowly lowered himself to a crouch, putting them at eye level. Up close, she could see the faint scar along his jawline, the shadow of stubble, the way his gray eyes held calculated intelligence. "My name is Dante Constantine. You're Emma Thorne, 23 years old, student at State University, working 2 jobs to pay for your mother's care while your brother receives treatment at St. Mary's. Or was receiving treatment until 3 weeks ago, when he borrowed $50,000 from people who prey on the desperate." Emma's eyes widened. "How do you—" "I make it my business to know everything that happens in my city." He reached behind her, and she felt the pressure on her wrists disappear as he cut through the rope with a knife she hadn't seen him draw. "Especially when it involves my cousin's freelance operations." Emma pulled her hands forward, rubbing at the raw marks on her skin. "You said the debt was void." "It is. Why?" Dante stood, extending a hand to help her up. Emma stared at it for a long moment before accepting. His palm was warm, his grip firm but careful. When she was on her feet, swaying slightly, he steadied her with a hand on her elbow. "Because Victor operated outside the family structure, any agreements he made are unenforceable. Your brother is legally clear." Dante's eyes searched her face. "You should go home, Miss Thorne. Forget this happened." "Forget?" Emma let out a laugh that bordered on hysterical. "You just shot someone. You kicked in a door like something out of an action movie. You knew my whole life story before we ever met. I'm supposed to just go home?" "Yes." "And what happens to Tyler? They'll come after him again, won't they? Different people, same debt, and next time there might not be a—" She gestured helplessly at him. "A mafia boss with a conscience to save us." Something dangerous glinted in Dante's eyes. "I assure you, Miss Thorne, I do not have a conscience. I have rules. There's a difference." "Then what do you call what you just did?" "Business." The word was clipped, final. Victor embarrassed the family. You were evidence of that embarrassment. I eliminated the problem. Emma stepped back from him, anger cutting through the fear and shock. "I'm not a problem. I'm a person who still has a $50,000 debt hanging over her family's head, void or not. You think Victor's the only loan shark in this city? You think his associates are just going to shrug and write it off? Tyler might be safe from you, but your brother, Dante interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade, will be safe from everyone. Because as of this moment, the Constantine family has absorbed his debt. He owes me now. Emma's mouth went dry. That's not better. That's worse. Is it? Dante moved closer, and Emma hated how her body responded, torn between fleeing and standing her ground. I don't deal in flesh, Miss Thorne. I don't operate comfort houses or force women into servitude. Your brother will have proper terms, proper interest, and a reasonable timeline to repay. And until that debt is settled, his eyes held hers. You and he are under Constantine protection. No one will touch you. No one will threaten you. No one will so much as look at you wrong without answering to me. It should have been reassuring. Instead, Emma felt like she'd just traded one cage for another, even if this one had gilded bars. Why would you do that? You don't know us. You have no reason to. You're right, I don't. Dante's jaw tightened. But I have standards, Miss Thorne. Lines that should never be crossed, no matter what business we're in. And what almost happened to you tonight crossed every single one of them. Emma searched his face, trying to understand this man who killed without hesitation, but claimed to have standards. You're still a criminal. Yes. You've hurt people. Many people. So why should I trust you? Dante smiled then, but it was a sad, knowing expression. You shouldn't. You should take the protection I'm offering, keep your head down, and pray your brother pays off his debt quickly, so you never have to see me again. He turned toward the door, his guards falling into formation around him. Marco will drive you home. Don't come back to this part of the city. Don't ask questions. Don't. Thank you. The words stopped him mid-stride. Dante looked back over his shoulder, surprise flickering across his features for just a moment before the mask of control slammed back into place. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how she must look. Dirty, disheveled, shirt torn, eyes probably red from the tears she'd refused to shed. But she stood straight, met his gaze directly. I don't like you. I don't trust you. But you saved me tonight. So, thank you. Something shifted in Dante's expression, so subtle she almost missed it. You're welcome, Miss Thorne. I hope we never meet again. Then he was gone, striding out of the basement with his entourage, leaving Emma alone in the room that had nearly become her prison. Her legs finally gave out, and she sank down onto an abandoned chair, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. A younger man appeared in the doorway, uncomfortable in his expensive suit. Miss Thorne, I'm Marco. Mr. Constantine asked me to drive you home. Emma nodded mutely, letting herself be led out to a black sedan that probably cost more than she'd make in 5 years. The ride passed in a blur of streetlights and shock. When they pulled up outside her apartment building, Marco handed her a business card. If anyone bothers you or your brother, call that number. Emma looked down at the embossed card. It listed only a phone number, no name, no business affiliation. Who do I ask for? You don't need to ask for anyone. Just call. Someone will handle it. He drove away before she could ask more questions. Emma climbed the stairs to her second-floor apartment on autopilot, hands still shaking as she unlocked the door. Her roommate Jess was already asleep. Emma made it to her bedroom, closed the door, and finally let the tears come. She cried for what had almost happened, for Tyler and his stupid, desperate choices, for the impossible situation she was in now, protected by a man more dangerous than the monsters he'd saved her from. She cried until she had nothing left, then fell into bed fully clothed and slept the dreamless sleep of the traumatized. The next morning, Emma called the hospital. Tyler was in his room, alive, recovering from his latest round of treatment. When she arrived an hour later, she found 2 men in dark suits standing outside his door. Miss Thorne, one of them nodded. Your brother's resting comfortably. Who are you? Mr. Constantine thought your brother might appreciate some security during his recovery. Emma's hands clenched into fists. Constantine. Of course. She pushed past the guards and into Tyler's room. Her brother looked up from his phone, his thin face breaking into a smile that died when he saw her expression. "Emma, what's wrong? What did you do?" The words came out sharper than she intended. "The money you borrowed, Tyler. Where did you get it?" His face went pale beneath the hospital pallor. There was a guy. He said he could help, said the terms were easy. The terms were that if you couldn't pay, they'd take me instead." Emma's voice shook. "They took me last night, Tyler. To a warehouse. They were going to—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Do you understand what you did? What almost happened?" Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, God. Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, I swear I didn't know. They said it was just a loan. They never mentioned—" "It doesn't matter what they mentioned." Emma sank into the chair beside his bed, suddenly exhausted. Someone came. Someone stopped it. But now we owe him instead. And I don't know if that's better or worse. "Who?" Emma looked at the guards visible through the door window. "Dante Constantine." Tyler went from pale to gray. "The Constantine family?" "Emma, those are the most dangerous people in the city. If they have their hooks in us, then you'd better get well fast and figure out how to pay off that debt." Emma stood, unable to look at her brother's stricken face any longer. "I have to go to work. There are guards outside. Don't leave without them." She made it halfway down the hospital corridor before the tears came again. Emma ducked into a bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, and stared at her reflection in the mirror. The same blue eyes looked back at her, but everything else felt different. Changed, like she'd crossed some invisible line last night and could never go back. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Hello?" "Miss Thorne, this is Dante Constantine." Emma's grip tightened on the phone. His voice was different over the line, somehow more intimate without the visual reminder of his dangerous presence. "How did you get my number?" "I told you. I make it my business to know everything." A pause. "I heard you visited your brother this morning. I hope the security arrangements are satisfactory." "I didn't ask for guards." "No, but your brother's condition makes him vulnerable. Consider it a courtesy." Emma laughed bitterly. "Nothing you do is a courtesy. Everything has a price. You're learning." Was that amusement in his tone? "I'm calling because we need to discuss the terms of your brother's debt more thoroughly, and certain practical considerations of my protection." "What kind of considerations?" "The kind best discussed in person. I'm sending a car to your apartment tonight at 7. Don't be late, Miss Thorne." "And if I refuse?" "Then you'll walk to our meeting, which would be unfortunate given the neighborhood you'd have to cross. 7 o'clock. Don't make me send Marco to collect you." He hung up before she could respond. Emma stared at her phone, anger and fear warring in her chest. She should refuse. Should tell him to go to hell, that she wasn't one of his criminal associates he could summon at will. But the rational part of her brain, the part that had seen him shoot a man without flinching, knew that defying Dante Constantine was a very good way to end up in a worse situation than she was already in. At 6:55 that evening, Emma stood outside her apartment building in the nicest outfit she owned, a simple black dress and heels she usually reserved for job interviews. The sedan pulled up precisely at 7. Marco was driving again. "Miss Thorne," he opened the door for her. "Where are we going?" "Constantine Estate. Don't worry, you're perfectly safe." Safe. Emma wanted to laugh at the word. She climbed into the car and watched the city pass by outside tinted windows. They drove for 20 minutes, leaving the dense urban core for an area of rolling hills and gated properties. The Constantine estate sat behind walls that looked medieval, topped with modern security cameras. The gates opened automatically as they approached. The mansion, was a sprawling stone structure that managed to be both beautiful and vaguely menacing. Marco led Emma inside, through a foyer with marble floors and a staircase that belonged in a museum, to a study lined with books and dominated by a massive desk. Dante stood at the window, looking out over manicured gardens. He'd changed from the suit she'd seen him in last night into dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, exposing forearms corded with lean muscle. He looked younger somehow, less the untouchable crime lord, and more the man underneath. It made him more dangerous, not less. "Thank you for coming." He turned, gesturing to a leather chair facing the desk. "Please, sit." Emma remained standing. "You didn't give me a choice." "There's always a choice, Miss Thorne. Sometimes all the options are simply terrible." He moved to the desk, opening a folder. "Your brother's debt. $50,000 at 20% interest. The original terms had payment due in 6 months. Obviously, that's impossible. I'm proposing new terms, $75,000 over 2 years, payments of $3,000 per month. No interest during his treatment, resuming when he's cleared to work." Emma did the math in her head. It was still a crushing amount, but compared to what Victor had demanded, that's almost generous. "I don't need to bleed your brother dry to make money, Miss Thorne. I need him alive and working so he can actually pay me back." Dante closed the folder. "However, there's a complication." "Of course there is." His lips twitched, almost a smile. "Victor's associates know you were at that warehouse. They know I intervened. And while Victor himself is no longer a problem, what does that mean? It means Victor won't be operating any more unauthorized ventures." The way Dante said it made Emma's blood run cold. "But his associates are less disciplined. There's been chatter, threats, talk of retaliation through softer targets. Me, you." Dante leaned against the desk, arms crossed. "Which is why I'm offering you a choice. You can continue with your life as normal, with guards following you everywhere you go, never certain if someone will slip through our security. Or you move here, into the estate. You'd have your own wing, your own space, but you'd be behind walls that no one crosses without my permission. You'd be untouchable." Emma stared at him, certain she'd misheard. "You want me to move into your house?" "Into the guest wing of my house, yes." "That's insane. I have a job, a life, a roommate." "You have a minimum wage job at a coffee shop, and another at a bookstore," Dante interrupted. "I'm offering you a salary. $3,000 a month, same as your brother's payment. You'd coordinate certain administrative tasks for legitimate Constantine businesses. Legal work," he added when she opened her mouth to protest. "Property management, paperwork, things that frankly bore me to tears. You'd be earning the money to pay off your brother's debt while staying alive to do it." It was clever. Emma had to give him that. He was offering her a golden cage, but the alternative was being hunted in the open. "And what else would you expect from me?" Dante's eyes darkened. "If you're asking what I think you're asking, Miss Thorne, the answer is nothing. You'd be an employee and a guest under my protection. That's all. Forgive me for being skeptical about the altruism of a mob boss." "I'm not altruistic." He pushed off the desk, closing the distance between them. Emma forced herself not to retreat. "But I am pragmatic. You're a liability as long as you're vulnerable. You're an asset if you're safe and can help manage the tedious aspects of running a business empire. And you're..." He stopped himself, jaw clenching. "You're someone who deserves better than what almost happened to you." There it was again. That flash of something human beneath the cold exterior. Emma studied his face, trying to understand this man who spoke of murder and protection in the same breath. "How long?" she asked. "Until your brother's debt is paid or the threat is eliminated, whichever comes first. And if I say no, then I'll do my best to keep you alive from a distance, but I can't guarantee anything." Dante's voice softened slightly. "I'm not trying to trap you, Emma. I'm trying to keep you breathing." The use of her first name caught her off guard, made this feel more personal than it should. Emma looked around the study, at the expensive furnishings and leather-bound books, trying to imagine living in this world. It was absurd. Impossible. And yet, I need to think about it. You have 24 hours. After that, I'll need an answer. Dante walked to the door, opened it. Marco will drive you home. Think carefully, Miss Thorne. Pride is a luxury you can't afford right now. Emma left the study, her mind spinning. She barely registered the drive home or climbing the stairs to her apartment. Jess was watching TV, looked up as Emma entered. Where have you been? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that. Emma sank onto the couch beside her roommate. Jess, if you had to choose between definitely dying or maybe living in a mansion with a dangerous criminal, which would you pick? Jess muted the TV. Okay, what the hell happened? And start from the beginning. So Emma told her. Not everything. Not the worst details of the warehouse, or exactly what Victor had planned. But enough. The debt. The rescue. The offer. Jess listened with increasingly wide eyes. Holy shit, she breathed when Emma finished. Dante Constantine? The Dante Constantine? Emma, he's like the kingpin of the entire city's underworld. He's on the news. The FBI has a task force dedicated to him. I know who he is. And he wants you to live with him? In his guest wing, working as an administrator. Jess gave her a look. Girl, come on. A man who looks like that, because let's be real, I've seen his pictures, doesn't invite a woman to live in his house just for her administrative skills. He said, I don't care what he said, I care what he wants, and I'm betting it's more than filing paperwork. Jess grabbed Emma's hands. But here's the thing. If the alternative is you getting killed, then you move into that mansion, you take his money, and you stay alive. Everything else you can figure out as you go. Emma wanted to argue, but couldn't find the words. Because Jess was right. Pride wouldn't stop a bullet. Principles wouldn't protect Tyler. And living was better than the alternative. She called the number on the business card at midnight. Yes? Dante's voice was alert despite the late hour. I'll do it. I'll move to the estate. Emma closed her eyes. But I have conditions. I'm listening. Tyler gets the same deal. He moves in when he's released from the hospital. He's not staying in that apartment alone. Agreed. I want to finish my degree. Online classes. Whatever it takes. I'll arrange it. And you, Emma's voice hardened, you stay out of my personal life. You don't get a say in who I talk to, where I go on my time off, or what I do with my money. I'm not your prisoner. A long pause. You'll have freedom within reason, Miss Thorne. But if I tell you somewhere isn't safe, you'll listen. If I say someone is dangerous, you'll trust my judgment. Your life is worth more than your pride. It wasn't everything she wanted, but it was more than she'd expected. When do I move in? Tomorrow. Pack what you need. Marco will handle the rest. Emma hung up and stared at her ceiling, wondering what she'd just agreed to. Wondering if she'd made a deal with the devil, or accepted the only lifeline in a sea of sharks. The next morning proved Dante meant what he'd said about handling things. Marco arrived with a moving crew that professionally packed Emma's entire life into boxes within 3 hours. Jess hugged her goodbye with tears in her eyes, and a whispered, "Call me every day, or I'm assuming you're dead." The guest wing of the Constantine estate turned out to be larger than Emma's entire apartment. A bedroom with a 4-poster bed and windows overlooking the gardens. A sitting room with a fireplace and enough books to stock a small library. A bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. A small kitchenette. It was beautiful, luxurious, and felt like a gilded cage. Emma was unpacking when someone knocked on her door. She opened it to find a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. "Miss Thorne, I'm Margaret, the house manager. Mr. Constantine asked me to show you around and explain how things work here." The tour took an hour. The estate was enormous, with wings for family, for guests, for business. There was a gym, a pool, a library that made Emma's fingers itch to explore, gardens that stretched for acres, and security everywhere, cameras, guards, systems that Margaret explained could lock down the entire property in seconds. "You have access to everything except Mr. Constantine's private wing and the business offices in the East Wing," Margaret said. Meals are served in the main dining room at 7, 1 and 7, but the kitchen is always open if you prefer to eat in your room. Mr. Constantine keeps irregular hours, so you might go days without seeing him. Is he here now? In his office. He asked that you join him when the tour is finished. Emma's stomach fluttered nervously. She followed Margaret through a maze of corridors to a different office than the study she'd seen before. This one was clearly a working space, with multiple computer screens, filing cabinets, and a map of the city on one wall dotted with colored pins. Dante looked up when she entered, his gray eyes assessing. Miss Thorne, settled in? As much as possible. Good. We should discuss your work responsibilities. He gestured to a chair. This time, Emma sat. The Constantine family owns significant legitimate holdings. Real estate, restaurants, a shipping company, warehouses. All legal, all generating paperwork that needs managing. You'll handle lease agreements, coordinate with property managers, process payments. Standard administrative work. Nothing illegal. Nothing illegal, he confirmed. Though I won't lie to you, Emma. The money that initially purchased these businesses came from less legitimate sources, but the businesses themselves are clean. I'm not asking you to do anything that would put you in legal jeopardy. The fact that he'd called her Emma again didn't escape her notice. And the payment? $3,000 a month, as promised. Paid in cash, since I assume you'd prefer the IRS not asking questions about your new income source. He slid an envelope across the desk. First month in advance. Emma opened it, saw the stack of bills inside, and felt her eyes widen. She'd never held this much cash before. This is yours. I suggest you open a safety deposit box. Dante leaned back in his chair. There's one more thing. Appearances matter in my world. If you're living under my roof, people will speculate about our relationship. Some will assume you're under my protection, because you're valuable to me. Others will make cruder assumptions. Emma's cheeks flushed. Let them assume whatever they want. I wish it were that simple, but perception affects reality in this business. His eyes held hers. I need you to trust that I will never ask you for anything you don't want to give, and in return, I need you to understand that sometimes we may need to present a unified front, attend certain events together, be seen in public as if you're someone important to me. It's a performance, nothing more. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend. I want you to be ambiguous enough that my enemies can't use you effectively. If they think you're just an employee, you're a soft target. If they think you're something more, he shrugged, then touching you is touching me, and no one is that stupid. It made a sick kind of sense. Emma nodded slowly. Okay, but if anyone asks me directly, I'm not lying about what this is. Fair enough. Dante stood, signaling the meeting was over. Start tomorrow, 9 a.m. Margaret will show you to your office. Emma left, envelope of cash clutched in her hand, and returned to her new room. She sat on the edge of the impossibly soft bed and tried to process the last 48 hours. 2 days ago, she'd been a struggling student working 2 jobs. Now she lived in a mansion, worked for the Mafia, and was under the protection of a man who killed without hesitation. Her phone rang. Tyler. Emma, I just got out of PT and there are men here saying I'm being discharged to some estate. What's going on? It's okay. I took Constantine's offer. You're coming here, where it's safe. Emma, no. I can't let you do this for me. You don't get a choice anymore, Tyler. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. Her voice softened. We'll get through this. Both of us. Together. When Tyler arrived that evening, accompanied by medical staff and security, Emma was waiting. Her brother looked thinner than she remembered, fragile in a way that broke her heart. But his eyes were clear and full of guilt. I'm so sorry, he whispered as she hugged him. I'm so sorry. I know. Now focus on getting better. We'll figure out the rest. They settled Tyler into a room in the guest wing, near Emma's. Having him close helped, made the situation feel less isolating. That night, Emma lay in her enormous bed, and stared at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of her new home. She didn't hear Dante pass her door, pausing for just a moment before continuing to his own wing. Didn't know that he stood in his bedroom, staring out at the same gardens she could see from her window, and wondered what he'd started by bringing her here. By bringing her into his world, into his home, into the dangerous orbit of his life. He'd told himself it was practical, logical. The smart move to protect an asset and neutralize a liability. But when he'd seen her in that warehouse, rope cutting into her wrists, fear in her blue eyes, but fury there too. Something in his carefully controlled world had shifted. Something he didn't have a name for, and wasn't sure he wanted to examine too closely. Dante Constantine had built his empire on cold calculation and ruthless pragmatism. Emotions were weaknesses to be exploited in others, or eliminated in himself. But as he stood in the dark, he couldn't shake the image of Emma's face when she'd thanked him. The way she'd looked at him with confusion and suspicion, and something else. Something that made him want things he had no business wanting. He shook his head sharply and walked away from the window. She was under his protection. That was all. That was enough. It had to be enough. In the morning, Emma started her new job. The office Margaret showed her to was efficient and well organized, with a computer system that would have made her professors weep with envy. The work itself was straightforward if time-consuming, reviewing lease agreements, processing rent payments, coordinating maintenance requests across dozens of properties. It was also, Emma had to admit, oddly satisfying. She liked the puzzle of organization, the challenge of optimizing systems, and it was completely, blessedly legal. She fell into a routine over the next week. Work from 9 to 5, dinner in her room, evenings spent on homework for the online classes Dante had indeed arranged. She saw him rarely, passing in corridors, brief check-ins about work tasks. He was unfailingly professional, keeping his distance, which should have been a relief. Instead, Emma found herself noticing small things. The way he rolled his sleeves up when working. How he took his coffee black. The scar on his jaw that she wanted to ask about, but didn't. The moments when his cold facade cracked and she glimpsed something softer underneath. It was dangerous thinking. She knew that. But knowing and feeling were different things. Tyler's presence helped ground her. He was gaining strength, spending his days in physical therapy, and slowly getting color back in his cheeks. They ate dinner together most nights, and Emma treasured those moments of normalcy in their very abnormal situation. On Friday night, 2 weeks after she'd moved in, Dante knocked on her door. Emma opened it to find him in a tuxedo, looking like he'd stepped out of a movie. Her mouth went dry. "There's an event tonight," he said without preamble. "A charity gala. I need you to attend with me." "I don't have anything to wear to a gala." "Look in your closet." Emma turned to find a garment bag hanging on her closet door that definitely hadn't been there an hour ago. She unzipped it to reveal a midnight blue gown that probably cost more than her car. "I can't accept this." "It's not a gift. It's a uniform. You're representing the Constantine family tonight." Dante checked his watch. "Car leaves in 30 minutes. Margaret will help you get ready." He left before she could protest further. Margaret appeared as if summoned, along with a makeup artist and a hairstylist. They transformed Emma with frightening efficiency. The gown fit perfectly, hugging her curves before flowing to the floor. Her blonde hair was swept up in an elegant twist. "Diamond earrings, on loan," Margaret assured her, sparkled at her ears. When Emma emerged from her room, Dante was waiting at the bottom of the main staircase. His eyes tracked her descent, something flickering in their gray depths before he schooled his expression back to neutrality. "You clean up well, Miss Thorne." "So do you, Mr. Constantine." His lips quirked. "Tonight, it's Dante and Emma. We're supposed to look comfortable with each other, remember?" He offered his arm. Emma took it, hyper-aware of the solid warmth of him through the expensive fabric of his tuxedo. They rode to the gala in silence, tension thick in the car. The event was at the city's most prestigious hotel, a glittering affair full of wealthy donors and carefully cultivated respectability. Emma recognized several politicians, a few local celebrities, and enough money to feed a small country. As they entered, she felt the attention shift to them immediately. Whispers followed in their wake. "Ignore them," Dante murmured in her ear. "They're vultures who mistake wealth for worth." He kept her close as they navigated the room, his hand warm on the small of her back. People approached carefully, deferentially. Dante introduced her simply as Emma, my companion, letting their imaginations fill in the rest. She shook hands with a senator, made small talk with a tech CEO, and tried not to feel like a fraud. "You're doing well," Dante said during a rare moment alone. "They like you. They're afraid of you. There's a difference." True enough. He snagged 2 champagne glasses from a passing waiter, handed her one. "But you have a natural grace about you. It's refreshing. Most people in my world are either sycophants or snakes. And which am I? Neither. You're real." The words seemed to surprise him as much as her. He cleared his throat. "We should... Dante Constantine. I heard you'd be here." They both turned to find a man approaching, tall and handsome in a cruel way, with slicked-back dark hair and a smile like a shark. Emma felt Dante tense beside her. "Petrov," Dante said coolly. "I didn't realize you'd been invited. Last-minute addition. You know how it is." Petrov's eyes slid to Emma, lingering in a way that made her skin crawl. "And who is this lovely creature?" "Emma Thorne. My..." Dante's hand tightened possessively on her waist. "Companion." "Charmed." Petrov took Emma's hand, brought it to his lips. She resisted the urge to yank it back. "Tell me, Miss Thorne, how does a beautiful woman like you end up on the arm of our city's most notorious bachelor?" "Luck," Emma said with a smile that showed teeth. "Very good luck." Petrov laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm sure. Dante, we should talk business. There's a matter of territory in the warehouse district that needs discussion." "Not tonight." "It really can't wait." "I said not tonight." Dante's voice dropped to that dangerous whisper Emma recognized from the warehouse. "You'll call my office Monday. We'll schedule a proper meeting. Tonight, I'm otherwise occupied." The tension was thick enough to cut. Petrov's smile never wavered, but his eyes went cold. "Of course. Enjoy your evening." He nodded to Emma. "A pleasure meeting you, Miss Thorne. I'm sure we'll see each other again." He disappeared into the crowd. Emma exhaled slowly. Who was that? Sergei Petrov, head of a rival family, and a man with a talent for pushing boundaries. Dante scanned the room. "I think we've made our appearance. Ready to leave?" Emma had never been more ready for anything. They made their excuses and left, the night air cool against her flushed skin as they waited for the car. She was acutely aware of Dante standing close, his presence both comforting and unsettling. "You handled that well," he said. "Petrov's not an easy man to deal with." "I've dealt with worse recently." Dante's jaw clenched. "You shouldn't have had to deal with any of it." "Maybe not, but here we are." Emma looked up at him, at the hard lines of his face softened by the dim light. "Why do you do it? This life, I mean. You're clearly smart enough to do anything. Why choose this?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I was born into it. My father, his father before him. The Constantine name comes with certain expectations. By the time I was old enough to understand what that meant, I was already too deep to escape. And power," he met her eyes, "is seductive, Emma. The ability to control your environment, to protect what's yours, to make sure you're never vulnerable again. Once you taste that, it's hard to walk away." "Never vulnerable again," Emma repeated. "What happened to you?" "That's a story for another time." The car pulled up. Dante opened her door. "But thank you, for tonight. I know it wasn't easy." They rode home in silence, but it felt different now. Less tense, more contemplative. When they arrived, Dante walked her to her door like a gentleman from another era. "Good night, Emma." "Good night, Dante." Their eyes held for a moment too long. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Emma staring after him with her heart beating too fast, and thoughts that were definitely absolutely dangerous. Over the following weeks, Emma's life fell into a strange new normal. Work, classes, occasional public appearances with Dante. They attended charity dinners, art gallery openings, events where his presence legitimized criminal money with respectable causes. And every time Emma played her part, the mysterious woman on Dante Constantine's arm, beautiful and poised and ambiguous. The press picked up on it, of course. Photos appeared online, speculation in society columns. Who is Emma Thorne? Constantine's new mystery woman? From nowhere to the top of the underworld. Emma tried to ignore it, but it was hard when strangers recognized her. When her old roommate Jess texted screenshots with strings of exclamation points. When her mother, in a rare moment of clarity during a visit, asked if Emma was dating that nice young man in the photos. "It's complicated, Mom," was all Emma could say. Tyler was recovering well, growing stronger each day. He'd started working too, managing some of the property maintenance crews, paying off his debt 1 month at a time. Emma was proud of him, even if guilt still shadowed his eyes every time he looked at her. "I'll make this right," he told her one evening. "Whatever it takes, Emma. I'll pay off every cent and get us out of here." Emma wanted to tell him she wasn't sure she wanted to leave anymore, but that was too complicated to explain, even to herself. Because the truth was, she'd started to see past Dante's cold exterior. The way he checked on Tyler's progress without being asked. How he left books he thought she'd like outside her door. The donations he made to charities, anonymously, thinking no one noticed. The strict rules he enforced about who could and couldn't operate in his territory. Rules that protected the vulnerable even as he profited from vice. He was a criminal, a killer. A man who operated outside the law and made his fortune from things that hurt people. But he was also more complicated than that. And Emma, God help her, was starting to care about those complications. One night, a month after she'd moved in, Emma couldn't sleep. She wandered the estate, ending up in the library. She'd just pulled a book from the shelf when she heard footsteps. Dante appeared in the doorway, wearing sweats and a t-shirt, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. Couldn't sleep either? Too much on my mind. Join the club. He moved to the bar cart in the corner. Drink? Why not? They sat in leather chairs by the fireplace, whiskey glasses in hand, surrounded by books and shadows. For a while, neither spoke. Then, "You asked once what happened to me," Dante said quietly. "Why I choose this life." Emma waited, not pushing. "I was 12 when my mother was killed, caught in the crossfire of a territorial dispute. My father was supposed to protect her, but he was too busy building his empire to notice the threats until it was too late." Dante stared into his glass. "I learned that day that power is the only real safety. That if you're not strong enough, ruthless enough, you lose what matters. So I became strong, ruthless, made sure no one could ever take from me again." Emma's heart clenched. "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." He looked at her then, really looked at her. "But it shaped everything. Made me into this. And I've done things, Emma. Terrible things. Things that would make you run if you knew the details. Maybe I'm not as fragile as you think. Maybe not." His voice was rough. "You're the strongest person I've met, actually. The way you handled everything that's happened. The way you refuse to be a victim even when you have every right to crumble. It's..." He stopped, shook his head. "You should go, before I say something I can't take back." Emma set down her glass and stood, but instead of leaving, she moved closer to where he sat. "What if I don't want you to take it back?" Dante's eyes darkened. "Emma, I'm not naive. I know what you are. What this is." She gestured between them. But I also know what I feel. And I think you feel it too. What I feel doesn't matter. Dante stood abruptly, putting distance between them. You're under my protection. Vulnerable. Anything between us would be coercion by definition, no matter what I want or you think you want. So you're saying you do want something. I'm saying... He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I'm saying you deserve better than a man like me. Better than this life. And the responsible thing is to keep my distance until you can leave safely. Emma's heart pounded. And if I don't want you to keep your distance? Then I'm the monster everyone thinks I am. But his eyes told a different story. Go to bed, Emma. Please. She went, but sleep was even more impossible than before, because Dante Constantine had just confirmed what she'd been afraid to acknowledge. There was something between them, something real and dangerous and completely impossible. And Emma was falling, despite every logical reason not to. The next few weeks were torture. Dante was polite, professional, and kept his distance. Emma threw herself into work and classes, trying not to think about gray eyes and careful hands, and the loneliness she'd glimpsed beneath his armor. Tyler noticed, of course. You're miserable, he said one evening. I'm fine. You're in love with him. Emma's head snapped up. I am not. Emma. I'm your brother. I know you, and I see how you look at him, how he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching. Tyler's expression was pained. I did this to you, put you in this situation. This isn't your fault. It is, though, and I hate it. Hate that you're here, that you're caught up in this world because of my mistakes. He took her hands. But if there's something real between you and Constantine, if he makes you happy, then maybe something good came from all this horror. Emma wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. Because Tyler was right. About all of it. The crisis came on a Thursday. Emma was working in her office when Margaret burst in, face pale. Miss Thorne, we have a situation. Tyler's gone. Emma's blood ran cold. What do you mean, gone? He left the estate 2 hours ago with one of the newer guards. They haven't returned. We can't reach them by phone. No. Emma was on her feet, racing toward Dante's office. She burst in without knocking, to find him already on the phone, face like stone. I don't care what it takes. Find him. He hung up, met Emma's terrified gaze. We'll get him back. Who took him? Why? Petrov. Retaliation for me refusing to negotiate on his terms. Dante's jaw clenched. He sent a message. He has Tyler. Wants to trade him for territory in the warehouse district. Then give it to him. Give him whatever he wants. It's not that simple. If I cave to this, every other family will see weakness. They'll all start taking hostages, making demands. I have to respond with strength or lose everything I've built. Emma felt like she was going to be sick. So what? You're just going to let my brother die to protect your reputation? I'm going to get your brother back and make sure Petrov never threatens anyone under my protection again. Dante moved toward the door. But I need you to stay here. Let me handle this. Absolutely not. He's my brother, which is exactly why you need to stay here. You're leverage too, Emma. If Petrov gets his hands on you, Dante's voice went rough. Please, trust me. Let me bring Tyler home. Emma wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't the cold crime lord. This was a man who genuinely cared, who was terrified of failing her. Bring him back, she whispered. Please. I will. Dante paused at the door. No matter what it costs. Then he was gone, and Emma was left with Margaret in the terrible waiting. Hours passed like years. Emma paced her room, unable to sit still, imagining every horrible possibility. Tyler hurt. Tyler dead. Dante walking into a trap. Dante dying because of her family. It was nearly midnight when she heard cars on the gravel drive. Emma ran, nearly falling down the stairs in her haste. The front door opened and Tyler stumbled through, supported by Marco. He was bruised, bloody, but alive. "Tyler!" Emma caught him in her arms, holding him tight. "Oh God, are you okay?" "I'm fine. Scared the hell out of me, but I'm fine." Tyler hugged her back fiercely. "Where's Constantine?" Emma looked past them, heart sinking. "He's not with you?" Marco's face was grim. "Boss stayed behind. Said he needed to send a message." "What kind of message?" No one answered, which was answer enough. Emma made sure Tyler was settled with the estate's doctor. Then she did something probably incredibly stupid. She called Dante's cell phone. It rang 4 times before he answered. "Emma?" His voice was tired, strained. "Tyler's home?" "He's safe. Where are you?" "Finishing things. Don't worry about me." "Don't worry? You stayed behind to do God knows what. To God knows who. And I'm not supposed to worry?" Emma's voice cracked. "Dante, please, come home." A long pause. "I need to make sure this never happens again." "And then what? You die? You end up in prison? I lose you before—" Emma stopped, shocked by her own words. "Please," she said more quietly. "Tyler's safe. That's what matters. Just come home." "Emma, I'm not asking as an employee or someone under your protection. I'm asking as—" She took a breath. "As someone who cares about you. Please come home." She could hear the conflict in his silence. Finally, "I'll be there within the hour." Emma waited in the entrance hall, unable to relax until she saw him. When Dante finally walked through the door, she saw blood on his knuckles, a cut above his eye, exhaustion in every line of his body. But he was alive. She crossed to him without thinking, reached up to touch the cut on his face. "You're hurt." "It's nothing." "It's not nothing." Emma's hands shook. "You could have been killed." "But I wasn't." Dante caught her wrist gently. "Emma, what are you doing?" "I don't know." She looked up at him, not bothering to hide what she felt anymore. "I don't know what I'm doing, or if this is insane or if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. All I know is that when Marco said you stayed behind, I couldn't breathe. And I realized that somewhere along the way, I stopped just existing here and started—" She didn't get to finish. Dante pulled her, against him, one hand cupping her face as his lips found hers. The kiss was fierce, desperate, full of everything they'd both been holding back. Emma melted into him, fingers curling in his shirt, kissing him back with equal intensity. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "This is a terrible idea." "Probably. You could still leave, should leave, find someone better, safer." "I don't want safer." Emma's voice was fierce. "I want you, all of you, the good, the bad, the dangerous. I'm not a naive girl anymore, Dante. I know what I'm choosing." "Emma." His voice broke on her name. "Unless you don't want this. Don't want me." "Not want you?" Dante laughed, but it sounded pained. "I've wanted you since the moment I saw you in that warehouse, so brave and terrified and refusing to break. I've wanted you every day since. Every time you smile at something in one of those books I leave you. Every time you look at me like I'm more than the sum of my crimes." He kissed her again, softer this time. "But wanting and having are different things. And I'm trying very hard to be better than my instincts where you're concerned. What if I'm tired of you being noble?" Emma traced the line of his jaw. "What if I want your instincts?" Dante groaned. "You're killing me." "Good." She smiled against his lips. "Now take me upstairs and show me exactly how much you've been holding back." His eyes darkened with heat and promise. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Dante swept her into his arms, carrying her up the grand staircase toward his private wing. Emma had never been to his rooms before. They were surprisingly sparse, masculine and elegant without the ostentatious wealth she'd expected. A large bed dominated the space, and it was there he laid her down with reverent care. What happened next was both tender and passionate, Dante treating her like something precious, even as they came together with months of pent-up tension finally finding release. Emma learned the landscape of his body, the scars that marked his skin, the places that made him gasp. He learned her too, patient and thorough, making sure her pleasure came first, second, third before seeking his own. Afterward, wrapped in expensive sheets with Dante's arms around her, Emma felt simultaneously more safe and more exposed than she'd ever been. This was real now. No more pretending it was just protection, just a business arrangement. "What happens now?" she whispered. Dante pressed a kiss to her hair. "Now we figure it out. Together. If you still want that." "I do." Emma tilted her face up to kiss him. "But I have one condition." "Name it." "No more keeping me in the dark about the dangerous stuff. No more protecting me from the truth of your world. If I'm in this, I'm all in. No more half measures." Dante's expression turned serious. "Emma, some things... No. Either you trust me, or you don't. Either I'm your partner, or I'm just another person you're protecting. Which is it?" He studied her face for a long moment. Then, partners. Equal partners. Even though it terrifies me. "Good." Emma settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Tell me what happened tonight. With Petrov." So he did. Dante told her about the confrontation, the message he'd sent, the balance of power in the city's underworld that required certain responses to certain provocations. He told her things he'd never told anyone, trusting her with the reality of his life. And Emma listened, asked questions, and didn't flinch from any of it. The next morning, the entire household knew something had changed. Emma emerged from Dante's wing wearing one of his shirts, her hair a mess, looking thoroughly compromised and not caring at all. Margaret's expression was carefully neutral, but Emma caught the hint of a smile. Tyler was less subtle. "Please tell me you know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing." Emma poured coffee. "I'm choosing my own life, Tyler. Finally. With a mob boss. With a man who saved both our lives and who I happen to have fallen in love with. Yes, he's dangerous. Yes, his life is complicated. But he's also brilliant and protective, and surprisingly funny when he lets his guard down." She met her brother's eyes. "I'm not asking for your approval, but I'd like your support." Tyler was quiet for a moment, then sighed. "You've always been the strong one, the one who knew what she wanted. If Constantine makes you happy, really happy, then I support you. Just be careful. Please." "I will." Over the next few weeks, Emma and Dante navigated their new relationship. It wasn't always easy. There were arguments about his overprotectiveness, about the dangerous aspects of his work she wanted to be involved in, versus the ones he wanted to shield her from. But they worked through it, learning to compromise, to trust. Emma started taking on more responsibility in the legitimate businesses, proving herself as more than just Dante's girlfriend. She had a mind for organization and people management, and soon was coordinating major projects across multiple properties. Dante watched her thrive with obvious pride. "You're too good at this," he told her one evening. "I'm going to have to make you a proper executive." "Is that a promotion?" "It's a recognition of reality. You're running half my legitimate empire already? Might as well have the title and salary to match." Emma grinned. "Vice President of Operations has a nice ring to it." 3 months after Tyler had been taken, Dante called a meeting of the major families. Emma attended at his side, no longer as ambiguous arm candy, but as his acknowledged partner. The shift in how people treated her was noticeable. More respect, more caution. Petrov was notably absent. Emma didn't ask what had happened to him. Some things she was better off not knowing. "Gentlemen," Dante addressed the room. "We're here to establish new protocols, clear boundaries for acceptable business practices in this city, and to make one thing absolutely clear," his hand found Emma's, "no one, under any circumstances, touches the innocents. No trafficking, no coercion, no preying on the vulnerable. Anyone who violates these rules will answer to me personally. Are we clear?" There was general assent, some more reluctant than others. But no one challenged him. Dante Constantine had proven himself too powerful, too ruthless to cross. Afterward, standing on the balcony of the Constantine estate, Emma leaned back against Dante's chest as they watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and red. "Do you regret it?" Dante asked quietly. "Any of this?" Emma thought about the terrified girl in the warehouse, the impossible choices, the dangerous path that had led her here. Then she thought about the man whose arms held her, the life they were building, the future that stretched before them full of possibility and risk. Not for a second. Dante turned her to face him, gray eyes intense. "I love you, Emma Thorne. I probably shouldn't, certainly don't deserve to, but I do. Completely. Irrevocably." Emma's breath caught. "I love you too, my dangerous, complicated, surprisingly romantic mob boss." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma's eyes went wide. "Dante, I'm not asking you to marry me. Not yet." He opened the box to reveal a stunning sapphire ring. "I'm asking you to build something with me. A real partnership. A real life. I'm asking if you'll stay, not because you owe me, or because you're in danger, but because you choose to. Because you want this, us, as much as I do." Tears pricked Emma's eyes. "You're asking me to commit to the most dangerous man in the city." "I'm asking you to commit to me. Just me. The man who loves you more than anything. The man who will spend the rest of his life making sure you never regret choosing him." Emma took the ring, slipped it on her finger. It fit perfectly, catching the dying light. "Then yes, to all of it. To you. To us. To building something real in the middle of all this chaos." Dante pulled her close, and Emma felt his heart racing against hers. "Thank you," he whispered, "for seeing past everything I am to who I could be. For making me want to be better." "You don't have to be perfect," Emma murmured. "You just have to be mine." They stood there as darkness fell, two people from impossible worlds who'd found each other against all odds. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, dangers, complications that came with loving a man like Dante Constantine. But Emma had learned something over these months. She was stronger than she'd known, braver than she'd believed, and love, real, fierce, choose each other everyday love, was worth fighting for. Even if the fight never really ended. Especially then. 6 months later, Emma stood in the gardens of the Constantine estate in a dress that cost more than her old apartment, surrounded by a carefully curated guest list of family, friends, and a few business associates who'd proven themselves trustworthy. Tyler stood beside Dante as his best man, whole and healthy, and building his own legitimate career with the Constantine companies. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, but Emma barely heard the words. She was too focused on Dante's face, on the way he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. They'd written their own vows. When it was her turn, Emma took Dante's hands and spoke from her heart. "I promise to stand beside you, not behind you. To challenge you when you're wrong and support you when you're right. To be your partner in every way that matters. You've given me protection, but more than that, you've given me freedom. To be myself, to grow, to choose my own path. And every day, I choose you. Today and always." Dante's voice was rough with emotion when he spoke his vows. "You saw a monster and chose to find the man beneath. You took the worst moment of your life and turned it into something beautiful. You make me want to be worthy of you, Emma. And even though I know I never fully will be, I promise to spend every day trying. To protect you, cherish you, and love you with everything I am. You're my heart, my conscience, my home, and I'm yours, completely. When they kissed, the crowd erupted in applause, but Emma barely heard them. She was too busy kissing her husband, her partner, her choice. They'd started in darkness, a warehouse, terror, impossible circumstances, but they'd found light together, built something real and precious from the ruins of what should have destroyed them. And as Dante swept her into his arms and carried her back toward their future, Emma knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. The dangerous one. The impossible one. The one that had saved her in every way that mattered. Not because a mob boss had claimed her, but because she'd claimed him right back. And together, they were unstoppable.